So listen, I think it's probably more than safe to say, and you don't have to agree with me, but it's going to be pretty hard to disagree with, that when the world's #1 player, Scottie Scheffler, gets even the slightest amount hot with his putter, that he's considered unbeatable. Oh yeah, he's that freaking good. This guy is a phenomenal ball striker. And today, what we're going to be doing is we're inside the lab and we're going to be taking a good close look at his golf swing from face on and down the line. I'm going to show you exactly what makes him such a special ball striker. There are 2 attributes that this guy has built into his swing shape that a lot of you at home are lacking. And if you get these 2 things under control, then you're going to be well on your way to playing your best golf. But I got even better news for you, because just doing analysis doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of good for a lot of you. You need something to help you get, help you get moving. Well, that's what we're going to do. Later on in the week, you and I, we're going to be heading out to the driving range together. I'm going to show you a drill that you can do that's going to help you start to feel and see what it's like to move the club through the point of contact and through the low point with a great deal of control and a great deal of stability. And you're going to find that your ball striking is going to start to change pretty dramatically if you follow the step-by-step plan that I'm about to outline for you. Okay, but before I do so, I want to hear what your predictions are for this upcoming weekend at TPC. I'm going to take Scottie, and I'll give you guys the rest of the field. Actually, you know what? I'll give honorable mentions to Wyndham Clark and Max Homa. I think that those 2 guys are going to bring some fireworks as well, but I do think that the way that Scottie looks right now, I think he's going to pull one out again. So post up in the comments below what you think is going to happen this upcoming weekend. Always an exciting golf tournament. And if you are brand new to the channel, make sure you take a moment and subscribe to the channel. And if you like today's video, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up. Now, let's head inside the lab. And let's take a look at this golf swing that, no, we're not going to be focusing on his foot or his hip action down through the bottom, which I know a lot of you get excited about. We're going to be focusing in on what he does through the release. Let's get to work. All right, so before we jump into the nitty-gritty here today, I want to talk about a couple of key points that I want to start getting the wheels turning in your brain. Now, when you hear the term good ball striker, what does that actually mean to you? Well, when I hear that term good ball striker, I can tell you this, is that I immediately think of a player that has complete control of their golf ball from a front to back and a side to side standpoint. Somebody that has good front to back dispersion is somebody that's controlling the spin and controlling the trajectory. When you go out to a PGA Tour event, we're not just going out there and hitting the golf ball on the same trajectory and hitting it on the same spin rate every single time. We're always working to control the spins and the trajectories because we need to be able to get the ball as close to the hole as possible. And when you have good front to back dispersion and good side to side dispersion, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to hit a lot of fairways and a lot of greens. That's what I think about when I hear the term good ball striker. Now, there's obviously a couple of very important factors that go into being a good ball striker. And the first one being is going to be good low point control. You want the golf club moving to the same exact low point with every single club in your bag, including your driver. You want a very consistent low point. If you have a consistent low point, then you're setting yourself up for a very consistent release that you can start building stability into the release, which is the second factor that Scottie Scheffler has that's so good, is he has very good stability in the club face. Now, looking at the left-hand side of the screen, I want you to look at this iron swing specifically, and I want you to watch his hands and his arms as they work down in front of his body. Now, I do know that he's hitting a high lofted club here. It's some sort of wedge, and he very well could be hitting some sort of small cut. But you can see here that his hand and arm position at the top of the swing is very upright. That's very much tied to his DNA. And you can see that he shallows the arms out beautifully, starts to get a little bit of flexion in the lead wrist. Club shallows out, it's on a very neutral path, and here we are at delivery. Now, here's something that's very interesting. Aside from the leg and the foot action, I want you to watch the hand and arm function through the release. And I want you to see that his hands and his arms turn very much off to the low left-hand side of the swing. They stay very low and they turn left a substantial amount. Now, whether you're hitting a draw, a straight shot, or a fade, your hands and arms do need to move off to the left. Make sure you understand that. How much is going to be very player dependent. How low your hands exit is also going to be very player dependent. And the reason why I bring that to your attention is because I want you to understand that your release pattern is very much tied to your DNA. What Scottie does in his swing shape is he uses this sort of low left turn to his hands and his arms to create stability in the club face. Now, when you hear that term stability in the club face, I want you to understand what that means to a golf instructor. A golf club that's stable is a golf club that's being de-lofted the proper amount. A golf club that's rotating through the point of contact at a very constant and a very consistent rate. And playing professionals do that better than anybody on the planet. they generally speaking have the golf club rotating somewhere between, let's just say hypothetically, between 100 to 300 degrees per second through the point of contact. Where amateur golfers can have the golf club rotating somewhere between 800 to 1200 degrees per second. That's a substantial increase. That's exactly what we're going to be working to get you away from this week, is we're going to be working to make sure that you've got good low point control and you've got really, really good solid action from the club face as it moves its way through the low point. If you have those two things in place and you have a good engine to your golf swing, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to start playing some of your best golf. Now, on the right-hand side of the screen is where most of the analysis is going to be done today. And I want you to understand that Scottie does something very good in the start of his downswing. Now, this isn't really fair because the camera is moving a lot, but you will notice that he's got a lot of pressure onto his trail leg, and here's where he starts kind of falling onto his lead side. So he's now transferred somewhere between 75 to 80% of his weight underneath his lead ankle. Okay, there's a lot of pressure now moved underneath that lead ankle. The shoulders have stayed closed. This is where he's going to start to make his post-up move happen, where he's driving that ankle into the ground and rotating that hip back. Now, if you look at when his hands work down in front of his trail thigh here, what you're going to see is when the lead hand gets in front of the trail thigh is that he doesn't have the club shaft parallel to the ground like you would see of a lot of other players. Why? Well, think about it this way. As part of his DNA, he's got very upright arm movement, right? Which could be considered a steepening move in the swing shape. When you have all of these steepening moves, you have to be able to figure out a way to be able to shallow things out. And so he actually starts releasing the club a little bit on the sooner side than you would see of, let's just say, a guy like Tiger Woods. And if you look at the point of contact, you could see that, yes, camera angle does play a little bit of a role in this, but you can see that his hands are kind of back in between his thighs rather than being over in the middle of the lead thigh. But most importantly, what you can see is that the golf club is de-lofted, so he's got shaft lean, and that club face is square in relationship to his path. Now, I want you to watch the way the club works, the club head specifically, how it works through the low point in the swing. I want you to think about the low point being somewhere between 3 to 5 inches in front of this golf ball. What you're going to see is that the club stays on the ground all the way through the low point. That right there is stability. Now I want you to take a look at his wrist function very closely. And I'm going to mark the top of his lead wrist here where the release starts to commence. So here we are at the point of contact. And I want you to look that where his wrist was when it got down to the delivery point, it's staying very, very low. It's actually staying underneath this line. Now let's look at the wrist as it moves its way to the end of the low point. It's still low. Now he's not forcing the hands to stay down in this position. What he's doing is he's controlling the vertical nature of the hands and arms by not increasing the tilt to his spine. I want you to watch this very closely. Okay? I want you to look at the spine here at delivery. And I want you to look at the spine at the point of contact. Has the spine shifted? Not very much at all, right? So by keeping the spine more neutral and not creating a lot of lateral side bend here, he can have the hands, arms exit more to the left here. If he had his hands riding really high, okay, had his hands moving vertically really quickly, he'd be creating a lot of tilt. That would shallow the angle of attack, and that could change the rate of closure in the club face to a much higher rate of closure. So this is the whole enchilada that goes into this stuff. And it's a lot of times people get overwhelmed when they hear information like this because they're not going to necessarily know where to start when it comes to the release pattern. Now, we understand that when we look at golf swings that there are thousands of ways to be able to get the job done. And we understand that every single person brings their own DNA to the table. It's our job as golf instructors not to regurgitate information and give you cookie cutter golf instruction that worked for 2 other players. We want to be able to tie a release pattern into your swing shape so that you get the best possible results. And that's exactly what we're going to be working towards this week. Is I'm going to be showing you a little trick that you can do with your lead elbow and your trail elbow as your hands and arms work down in front of your body. And I'm going to start showing you how to control the low point inside of that movement. And you're going to start feeling what it's like to have the club face work down and through the point of contact and the low point beautifully. And you're going to start feeling what it's like to be able to compress the golf ball. And you're going to start really small and you're going to be able to build into this. And as you start to get more and more progress with it, then you're going to start to see that the rest of your swing shape starts to come together. You can reverse engineer your golf swing all day long and work on things in a very gradual sense and allow the rest of the faults that may show up that you don't necessarily like to start to dwindle, because you know that in order for you to be able to have a good release, your hands and arms have to be in a good spot, your low point has to be in a good spot, and your hands and arms have to exit through the point of contact in a very specific way. And that's what we're going to be working towards this week. So I hope that you guys are ready to rock and roll, and I hope you guys are ready to take that journey with me. But I do want to tell you that the most important thing that Scottie does so well in his golf swing is that he's got the low point established, and he's got very good stability in the club face. And one little final thought here. Look at the lead wrist, what it does when the release starts, and then when the lead wrist gets to the end of the low point. There's not a whole lot of movement there. If you can learn that movement right there, and you can control it with what your elbows and then what your shoulders are going to be doing post-impact, you have a slam dunk on your hands. So hopefully you guys are ready to take that ride with me, and I will see you guys later on in the week.